Have you ever wondered if your baby or toddler's poor sleep patterns could impact them later in life? It's a good question. Hey there, I'm Dr. Sarah Mitchell of Helping Babies Sleep, and today we're talking about a study that discusses infant sleep patterns, particularly poor infant and toddler sleep patterns, and how they affect executive functioning and behavior of our 3 to 4-year-olds. So this is a longitudinal study that was published in 2015. And the role of the study was to assess whether these early sleep patterns are predictive agents for predicting regulation and behavior problems in 3 to 4-year-olds. The study included 43 infants assessed using actigraphy, which is basically a monitoring of the quality, quantity, and the patterns of sleep overnight at 12 months of age. So when these kiddos were 1 year, they did actigraphy on them and followed their sleep patterns. And then they followed up with them at age 3 and 4. And with the follow-up, what they did, they were assessing their attention regulation and behavior problems using computerized tests and parental reports. Overall, the findings: lower quality of sleep in infancy significantly predicted compromised attention regulation and behavior problems. These findings underscore the need to identify and treat early sleep problems. So let's dive into this a little bit more and talk about what they did and what the implications of this might be for you. So we know that the first year of life is characterized by really, really rapid brain maturation, especially in those first 6 months. Like, think about how much your child changes from birth to 6 months. They're going to more than double their weight in size, and they're going to become so much more aware of their world. They are changing rapidly during this time. The study says by 6 months of age, most infants are sleeping through the night. And if you follow me at all, you know I have this pet peeve about using that term because people use it in such widely different ways. So I was making sure to read what the next phrase was, is what's their definition of sleeping through the night? And their definition means that they have one extended period of uninterrupted sleep. Well, I can absolutely buy into this because when I work with a client one-to-one or in my Helping Babies Sleep School, if we have a 6-month-old, let's say exclusively breastfed, it's pretty natural you still have one night feed. So maybe you get an 8-9 hour stretch, one feed, and back to bed for 3 to 4 hours. If that's formula fed, often those kids are sleeping fully 11 hours because of your ability to control the calories and knowing how much they're getting in the daytime. Okay, so just if you want a little bit of background, this study is using actigraphy to monitor sleep. It's a wristwatch-like device that records body motion data that can be translated to reliable and valid sleep-wake measures. So the main advantage of this method is that it provides an objective description of sleep patterns for extended periods, so more than a week, with no interference from the child's natural sleep environment. So with that, they looked at the total sleep period, so from sleep onset to the morning awakening, true sleep time, so time excluding all periods of wakefulness through the night. So if that kiddo had a feed or woke up and wanted mom to lie with them, those times were excluded. They looked at the sleep percent, so the percent of true sleep time from total sleep period, right? So that's a percentage, and the number of night wakings lasting 5 minutes or longer, okay? So that was the objective data they gathered on the sleep. Then they did that at 1 year, remember, and then again at 3 to 4 years. And then they did spatial conflict tasks in these 3 to 4-year-olds. So these are tasks designed to test their executive functioning and their their executive functioning. So executive functioning is the ability, to put it really simply, it's kind of like the ability to organize yourself. So it's very commonly known that kids with ADHD have poor executive functioning. They have a hard time organizing their things. For example, I remember seeing a little person, actually my son, coming out of kindergarten with his lunchbox and all the pieces of Tupperware that I had in there on the outside in his hands because he couldn't kind of get it together to get everything organized and put it all in. So that's an example of some weaker executive functioning. The task that these kiddos did was a spatial conflict task. And basically they were shown a picture of help the animal find its home. And then they had to press a key corresponding to the house of the animal. So for example, they would see a dog at the top of the screen and then there'd be a dog house or a bird cage. And they had to pick which house the animal should probably go into. Okay, and this provides a reliable conflict measure calculated as the difference between the percent of correct responses to congruent and incongruent stimuli. Okay, so this task demonstrates clear developmental patterns and are strongly correlated with additional well-established measures of executive control derived from child behaviors. Okay, so it's a proven task that is a reliable source to measure their executive functioning. So that was one thing they measured at 3 to 4 years. The second thing that they measured was behavioral problems, and they used this using parental reports. So a child behavior checklist and an abbreviated teacher-parent questionnaire were designed to address behavioral problems and symptoms associated with difficulty in regulating attention, hyperactivity, and behavior control. So those are things like the 3 to 4 year old's ability to stay seated during coloring time, let's say in class, or the ability to follow a simple direction or maybe a two-step direction in preschool, let's say. Okay. So that's what they did. Now let's discuss kind of what they found. So the main goal of the study, again, was to examine the predictive and concomitant association between sleep and attention regulation and behavior problems in early childhood. So on the executive attention task, in comparison to children with good sleep at 1 year of age, children with the poor sleep exhibited a larger drop in performance at 3 to 4 years, raising the possibility that sleep quality in infancy contributes to the emerging development of executive control. So what they're saying is if you had poor sleep at 1 year, chances are at 3 to 4 years, your executive control could be impacted. Okay. On the report measures of behavioral problems, and those are the checklists that they got from the teachers and the parents, they found that early poor sleep predicted significantly increased levels of reported behavior problems, with an emphasis on externalizing problems which are related to the ability to inhibit and regulate emotions and behavior. So this could be things like not dealing well with disappointment, right? Having tantrums if they don't get the way what they want, or maybe even the inability to kind of like contain their thoughts. So like blurts, like speaking out of turn in class. All those things involve self-regulation, which they found the kiddos at 1 year who had poor sleep were at more risk of at 3 to 4 years. Okay. And the authors of this study pointed out that the results that they found were consistent with earlier findings from other studies demonstrating significant associations between sleep and cognitive development during infancy, and with findings demonstrating a prediction of IQ scores and language development age 5 years from infant sleep measures. Okay. So these results that they're finding are congruent or mimicking findings from previous studies. Why they say this study is a bit different is that the study extends previous findings by showing for the first time that early sleep patterns measured and number of night wakings at 1 year objectively predict preschoolers' executive attention control. Now, they do say that one explanation for this is that poor sleep quality at 1 year of age is a sensitive index for brain maturation or for the development of cognitive or attention regulation capacities. So considered together with other studies demonstrating links between sleep and cognitive behavior regulations in the first years of life, it could be argued that sleep disruptions at an early age interfere with vulnerable brain maturation process that later does result in compromised regulatory capacities. So it's a theory. So this study doesn't necessarily prove that, but that's kind of like what the next thing that they should be studying, that poor sleep habits at 1 year is really going to impact your child to emotionally regulate, organize themselves, and have behavior problems at the 3 to 4 year mark. They're also saying that the current results are also in line with the adult literature, which demonstrates the effect of sleep deprivation on executive functioning. So what they're saying is there's lots of studies out there right now that show that if you deprive an adult of sleep, that their ability to organize themselves and self-regulate is inhibited with lack of sleep. They also said that these findings are also in agreement with experimental findings in older children, demonstrating a causal link between sleep restriction and deficits in higher order cognitive functioning. So moreover, they say, considering the role of sleep in neuroplasticity, that's how your brain's changing, neuroplasticity, during early and later development, the findings suggest the impact of sleep deficits at critical stages of early brain maturation could potentially lead to long-term consequences. However, much more evidence is needed to substantiate this possibility, which has significant clinical and developmental implications. So they're saying that we have a working theory, but we absolutely need more studies to back this up. Right? It's impossible based on what their findings are, because it was a really small sample size, only 43 kids, right? It's impossible to infer causal relations between sleep disruptions and deficits in executive functioning. They're saying it could be there's a third factor responsible for the predictive associations found in this study. It could be that slower brain maturation during infancy accounts for both early sleep disruptions and a delay in cognitive functioning. So there could have been something else going on this whole time with these kiddos, right? Because early cognitive functioning has not been assessed and controlled for in this study, the possibility can't be ruled out. An additional explanation for the finding has to do with the impact parents have on development on children's sleep and cognitive, social, emotional functioning. Parenting factors such as maternal psychopathy, parental stress, parental cognitions, and sleep-related behaviors have all been linked to development of infant sleep. Let me repeat that because this is important. So parental factors like your stress level, what you think about stress, what you think about your child's capabilities, if you think your child's capable or not capable, and your own sleep-related behaviors are linked to your child's sleep. This is also in alignment with a lot of Dr. Jody Mindell's work, who has found that the more a parent helps out at bedtime, the more night wakings there will be. What's the summary of this? Basically, there's still lots that we don't know. However, there is definitely a link between poor sleep at 1 year and some executive functioning and behavior problems at 3 to 4 years. We just don't know if slow brain maturation leads to poor sleep or vice versa. So if you're a parent with a 12-month-old or older, what can you do right now to prevent these potential behavior problems or executive functioning problems? Well, what you can do is really try and get your child the most sleep. And we want to help you here. So for those of you with kiddos less than 2, we have our sleep quiz where you can take to find out if your child's getting enough sleep, if your awake times are great, and in general, just like timing. One simple thing that you can do tonight to help your child get more sleep. And if you have a toddler over 2, we've got another download for you. We call it our Toddler Terrorism Sleep Cheat Sheet to help you with timing again. Is your child getting enough sleep? When should the proper bedtime be? How can you help your child be as well rested as possible? This is just one study that I picked from 2015. There's lots of evidence out there that talks about the link between sleep disruptions, ADHD being misdiagnosed, and all of that. So summary, more sleep is better. If you're watching this on YouTube, don't forget to hit subscribe to never miss a sleep trip.